I came to do what I do now from telling a joke on a social club stage when I was about 8 or 10. I remember walking home one day to ask my mum for a can of beans. When you think that was desperate, it was desperate. And someone said to me, "How did you get a job here if you haven't got a degree?"
Toni grew up on a council estate in Basingstoke, the eldest of 4, and faced real hardship early on, losing her father at 14 and helping raise her siblings. She left school with few qualifications and started out in a fruit and veg shop. But her breakthrough came when she landed a job at Reed Recruitment, a move that set her on a new path. From there, she worked her way into the tech industry, eventually working within Microsoft, all without a university degree. Now, Toni uses her lived experience to challenge ideas around class, career progression, and representation. Join us as we explore her journey, her views on social mobility, and how she's helping others move forward through the Common Good Network. Hi, you all right, Toni? How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good. Thanks, James. Very well.
Well, that's good. Good. Was that all right for an intro?
Yeah,
Sum it all up?
yeah, that'll do. Can I, one thing to add is that I'm actually the eldest of 6.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So we were 4, and then after my dad died, 2 more came along. So big family, big
Yeah.
family.
That's cool. Yeah, so before we get into it, could you tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing? Just a little bit about yourself, really.
Yeah, so I'm a keynote speaker, and event host. I specialize in social mobility and social equity. So organizations will typically book me to come in and talk as part of their efforts to advance the social mobility conversation. Um, and then in the kind of event hosting space, a lot of that typically is around kind of organizations that are looking to create greater social impact, or events that are championing people who might otherwise be overlooked. So I get to dress up, go out and about, and fulfill my, I guess, childhood dream of being on stages. And then more recently, I founded the Common Good Network, but we'll come on to that.
So this series is about those from working classes and low socioeconomic backgrounds. To you, what does working class mean? How would you define it?
Um, I was thinking about this, and it was good to sort of spend some time looking at the questions. But I think for me, it is if your heritage background is based in um, manual kind of trades, basically. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily mean just trades like, plumbing and bricklaying, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
if I think about my family on both sides, it was people who did manual work. You didn't have an office-based job. And it could be for many people, you go back to your parents or grandparents, because
Yeah.
what I do today, you would not say is an especially working class thing to do. If I were to
Mm.
go back home, people go, "I don't even know what you do. What do you actually do?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a job that you can't, it's difficult to
Yeah.
describe. So I think there's that side of things. And also, there's very much a kind of, I think, cultural aspect to it, which again, I suppose is rooted in that people who did that kind of manual work. So if you think
Yeah.
about, football terraces, that kind of thing, the kind of interests, hobbies, where you might have been brought up.
Yeah.
I think you can probably tie it all back to that. For me, at least, you're not the people that are in management positions.
Yeah, it's more kind of like ground level community kind of
Yeah.
um roles really, where everyone kind of knows everyone and
Mhm.
everyone kind of knows what kind of role. It's It's kind of a defined role. People understand what they do.
Yeah, and I always
Yeah.
say, when I'm doing a talk, I say my mum did mum jobs. All the mums did mum jobs,
Yeah,
where you were Avon lady, cleaner, worked in retail, childminder,
yeah.
um, and then I guess latterly that would have changed a bit, but I guess we could go down a huge rabbit hole. Maybe we're gonna go down a little rabbit hole today, but,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what it means to me, at least.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, yeah, this probably ties in actually, nicely to you growing up and your
Mm,
background. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how you end up getting into the industry you're in now?
yeah.
Yep.
Uh, well, it's funny because it's always I've been, like, doing my keynotes for about, 7, 8 years now, and so
Mm.
I've had the opportunity to do a lot of reflection. Because I could say, I came to do what I do now from telling a joke on a social club stage when I was about 8 or 10.
Mm.
So there's definitely always been an element of performance, wanting to show off. Um but it was so very much, big council estate, which was um, you mentioned, at the beginning, I grew up in
Mm.
Basingstoke, which was a new town that was enormously developed after the Second World War. And, this is it's fascinating to me if you think about some of those new towns, because the original market towns that they were built around might have only had, like, 3,000 people, and within,
Yeah,
a couple of decades, they've
it's a
got, like,
massive influx, yeah.
30,000. So, I think actually understanding that part of my own history, or the history of where you live, is important, because there was a lot of people spoke like they were from London because they were from London. They had been
Yeah,
moved en masse. Um, and the wonderful thing about it is that back then, those estates were built with really careful thought, planning, optimism about what kind of housing should we provide for families.
mm,
And so they were built around, like, green space and
yeah,
walking to school, walking to the shops, you know, everything was there, and it's not the case now. A lot of these places, and certainly the estate that I grew up on, the secondary school's been knocked down, the precinct at the shops is not what it was, the pub's gone, the boys' club's gone. So I was lucky that I grew up there at a time when, um, I could walk to 3 generations of my family,
yeah,
and I see now what an absolute privilege that was, to be able to go, "Oh, I'm just gonna go and see my great nanny, pop round there, get, 10p, spend at the shops." So, it was very, everyone was very connected, everyone knew your business, or they'd make it up if they didn't know your
mm,
business, so it could be quite suffocating depending on
yeah,
how you feel about that sort of thing. Very much, people would help you, and largely without judgment. And I think, again, I got myself in some terrible trouble when I was in my teenage years after my dad had died. Um, and people helped us out. People sort of looked
yeah,
out for you. So lots of that going on. Um, but I did see that if I stayed, I would have got stuck repeating a cycle.
mm,
Um, and I was my mum's birthing partner twice after my dad died, and I saw how hard life was for her. We had social services involvement, so much going on where you're like, do you know what? It, that is a tough, 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 tough life to live.
yeah,
Um, so as you mentioned, I got a job in a fruit and veg shop because I thought you got to graft your way out.
yeah,
Um, Knew I just wasn't gonna make the money I needed to make. Um, I got a second chance at education, so I went and did A levels at the local college. Um, then I was asked if I wanted to apply to uni, but I had no money, no safety net, no family members that went to uni.
yeah,
I just, for me, and actually, when I look at it now, I had been through so much by that point. I didn't need to stretch myself yet again by,
Yeah.
going through that. So, um, I was put on a vocational course, and again, if you think about the people that make things possible, that kind of, that post-18 advisor or whatever she was, that
Mm.
that person who said, "You need employability skills,"
Yeah.
like, saved my flipping life. So because I had A levels, because I, could type and was accurate at data entry, I got a job at Reed
Yeah.
in, Reading. So I was living in lodgings when I got my first job, and then I realized I couldn't afford to travel and rent and feed myself. Like, I remember walking home one day, um, to ask my mum for a can of beans. When you think that was desperate, it was desperate.
Yeah.
So I knew I couldn't move back home, so so I thought, "Stuff it, I'll move. I'll move to be close to my work." Started again, made new friends. That was incredibly lonely and incredibly hard to make new
Yeah.
friends. Um, and then met these amazing role models, which were young women who were earning great money, buying their own cars, buying their own houses, socializing in big fun groups. And I was meeting people from different backgrounds to me as well, and
Mm.
feeling that we weren't so different, really.
Yeah.
Um, so to cut the rest of that story quite short, I had, uh, I guess, a couple of defining moments, if you like. I got offered a job. Well, I applied for a job at a tech company. They just sold servers and routers
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. I went for an interview. They turned me down, and I was always taught, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I
Yeah.
phoned them
Yeah.
up. I said, "Why haven't you offered me this job? Because
Yeah.
hello." Um, and they said, well, your tenacity and willingness to ring up someone you don't know and ask for something, um, so we'll bring you in." And what was interesting to me is that the person they'd originally hired hadn't lasted a week, because working on a sales floor in the 90s, it would have been,
Mm.
most of the salespeople were young men, all were making a lot of money, and it was
Yeah.
rough and tumble. Um, but I, like,
Sure.
loved it. I thrived in it. So, and I saw you can make a load of money. And I knew then that, you know, when you come from a background where you can't afford, I'm walking, I'm walking half a mile for a can of beans.
Yeah.
I'm, I can't afford to go back. I need to lift myself out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found a career in tech. Worked for a software company after that that got bought by Microsoft. It was there that I realized my background may be a bit unusual, because then in that, the further up the chain you go in terms
Yeah.
of that industry, the less likely you are to meet someone that's like not a graduate, for example.
Yeah.
Um, and then I realized I had sort of done all I wanted to do in corporate, made good money, had a look around, thought, I don't want to be a global this or a European that.
Mm.
And I had 2 kids by then, and I realized that actually I could choose to leave, because my background meant that I'd always been a bit conservative financially.
Yeah.
So while other people were buying, like, Chanel handbags and Porsches, I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna put that money in the mortgage."
Mm.
Um So, which again, all of these things completely alien, because my immediate family, nobody, everyone lived in social housing or council
Yeah.
housing. Where you got a house is you go on the housing list. So there was lots that I had to navigate on my own. But yeah, so once I left corporate, I started writing about my experiences, started speaking about it, and people were like, "Oh my God, come and share this."
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, maybe I've got something that will help other people." So that's a really long answer to your question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think there's a lot of key points there. Actually, it's like the fact that you managed to get this career without having a university degree, and I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes there is this push where people are to get the best jobs, you need this degree,
Yeah.
Yeah, coming on that point, actually, did especially because you worked at Microsoft, was there
Yeah.
any kind of instances where people were like, "How did you manage to get this job? You've got this degree," and like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Always like, something that I often talk about was I found actually a certificate the other day where I was helping people with Oxbridge interviews, and I'm like, "What? How did that
oh,
even
bloody
happen?" I
hell,
don't know how I ended up doing that, but I was asked to mentor some new grads,
yeah,
and someone said to me, "How did you get a job here if you haven't got a degree?" It's like, "How isn't anyone giving you a slap?" What? It's you think I'm sure it wasn't intended with malice, but
yeah,
I think what was interesting, and I think people would have been coming out with debt then, obviously not the significant
mm,
or loan that you would have now, but I think there were people for whom they were like, "Hang on a minute, I'm, you know, being mentored by this person that is the same age
yeah,
as me and yet is already a manager, and they didn't go to uni, and I've got all this debt, and have I been sold
yeah,
a lie?" So I think, there was that. There were jobs I didn't get actually because, particularly in marketing, so I did quite a bit of work in marketing,
yeah.
and there was a role I went for, and because I didn't have the CIM, they were like, "Absolutely not," which I think was a shame in a
Could that have
way,
been
but
something that you could have got whilst working? They could have said this opportunity, yeah,
Yeah, I think so, and it was I do remember actually another time I was speaking to a manager, and he said, "Oh, have you thought?" Because I said, "I haven't got a degree, and I wonder if it's getting in my way." And he said, "Well, have you thought about doing an MBA?" I
yeah,
looked at it, I went, "Oh, maybe I could do an MBA," but it was 20 grand. So you go, "I've got
yeah,
I haven't got 20 grand to casually drop on doing this."
yeah,
So I didn't do that. So I'm certain there were times when it did get in my way, and there were times when I felt like maybe I'd missed out, but my sort of feeling really was that I had missed out on that sort of social aspect.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
yeah,
felt I'd missed out on. I didn't
yeah,
feel like I missed out on lectures.
yeah. Because I suppose, yeah, that's the thing. If you're working in that industry day to day, you're pretty
Mm.
much learning everything that would have been
Yeah,
taught at uni,
yeah.
and even then, universities only teach you so much. It's not until you're in the world of work there you're actually gaining real life experience, isn't it?
Well, and I was, a couple of different roles, but I was like an alliances manager. You
Mm.
you can't do a degree in that.
Yeah,
And actually the training that you get in a corporate, some of the best training I ever got was at Microsoft, like soft skills
yeah,
training,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
which that was phenomenal. But if you can be organized, articulate, know how to use Office,
yeah,
um, that was it. A lot of it was about dealing with people, not
yeah.
about whether you understood the nuances of how a printed circuit board is made. Because I did work for an organization that designed wiring systems and circuit boards for things like the Eurofighter.
Okay.
Like, and I'm clueless about those things, but I still was able to work in an organization like that because I was in sales, administration, marketing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, no, that's cool. It's quite fascinating actually, like,
Mm,
because yeah, you do hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you must get the degree," but for me, coming from creative background, um,
mm,
and I'm still in contact with a lot of people, it's the creative output that they really care about. It's not necessarily
yes.
the degree.
Yeah.
And I suppose this is why previous governments always said, "Oh, the arts. Why should there be the arts?" Yeah, you worked in a fruit and veg shop, and then you were like, "Oh, actually, I need to get a proper job." Was
Yeah.
there any other was there ever a point in your life where you were actually wanting to go more a creative route or any other direction?
Um, yeah, I do. I remember actually, there was a couple that I met at the college I went to, and it did do because it was the College of Technology. They
Yeah.
had like creative and arts courses, degree courses. or A-levels. Anyway, I met this couple, and the boyfriend was doing an arts qualification, and he painted me this picture for my 18th, which I've still got. And I remember thinking, "Oh, wow, like, I'd love to do that," but
Mm.
because for me, there was no clear path to how you would make money out of
Yeah.
that, I discounted it, and my whole life, I've, like, drawn, written, painted, performed, but always done it. It's been the thing I've done as a hobby on the side,
Yeah.
um, and whilst our school, like, we went to the National Theatre to see The Crucible, we got
Okay.
taken to galleries. You know, we were very I think very fortunate. The school was, you know, served a largely, um, working class population, and a lot of the young people there came from families without very much money at all.
Mm.
But at that time, I think there was still pretty good funding, and we had an amazing art teacher, so there was plenty of creative kind of input and creativity
Yeah.
in our world, but nobody made money out of it. We didn't know anyone that was
Yeah.
an I don't know, but even, you know, because marketing comes under creative industries, and didn't know
Yeah.
anyone that did stuff like that. There was a point where I thought, "Oh, I wanted to be like a journalist," but then I realized how much it can cost you to have to study,
Mm.
qualify, get one of my friends, his first job was on the Catholic Herald, and it was sort of the kind of work he had to do and take on,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
piecemeal
yeah.
nature of it. So, yeah, I wanted to be more creative, but, for me as a career, I couldn't see how I would earn money.
Yeah, so I suppose would that have factored in, like, from your families as well, saying to you, like, because there's no money in it, a lot of the
Mm.
times working class families will be like, get a job that
Yeah,
brings in the money, and it
yeah.
it it becomes quite scary for them knowing that their daughter might take on a career that won't bring in any money, and then it's that cycle of the struggle again.
Yeah. Well, my mum was always circling things in the paper. "Have you seen this?" But she would say, like, "Oh, you get yourself a little job, get some pin money." I was
Yeah.
like, "I don't want pin money. I wanna be making proper money."
Yeah.
Um, so it was that, I think it is that, having that wider viewpoint and perspective, and a friend of mine who is a ceramicist now, we went to school together, and she said that her mum had said to her, I think they'd gone to look at a course at college, and she went, "This
Mm.
isn't for the likes of us." And
Oh,
how
okay.
sad is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think it is that when you grow up and money, you are, you know, I remember checking the receipts after the shopping and ignoring the first bill. You wait for the red
Mm.
one, and really living hand to mouth. You
Yeah.
have that kind of, yeah, scarcity, um, mindset. But, when we did our kind of earlier, introductory call with each other, and I was saying to you, sort of, if I reflect on what was around me culturally, what you'd see on the television,
Mm.
so much of it was about working class families, working class life. It had
Yeah.
working class writers. Um, so even within that, I think it is that, depending on where you live. So it's
Yeah.
something, I'm sure it's like Port Talbot has got a number, like, is it Anthony Hopkins and Michael Sheen? Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like, there's people that have come from the same place. There seems to be something in the water that
Yeah.
is helping people pursue those creative, careers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, it's interesting actually that you touched upon that. It's like because I was speaking to some people that I know about growing up, and it was shows that we talked about bread
Mm.
and Auf Wiedersehen. What was it? Auf
Happy
Wiedersehen
the
Pet.
same pet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like it's funny. I mentioned it to some people, and then they were talking about, oh, that was a bleak time. But then it's like actually that was a period of time where, like you said, these were like working class
Mm.
individuals making programs that represented them and their local
Yeah.
community. But now, when you ask, "Oh, is there shows like that?"
Yeah.
You don't really feel that there is, and if there is, It feels like it's a token gesture as opposed to this is true representation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because I think it is like what was it I was watching? Oh, I was thinking about Grange Hill, like, back in
Yeah.
the day, and I know someone actually that wasn't allowed to watch it.
Oh.
Um, but we used to watch it, me and my friends, thinking, "Yeah, that is a fairly accurate
Mm.
representation of what school was
School
like."
life, yeah.
Um, and I'm sure oh my goodness, yeah. And again, the writer, in fact, did he go on to write for Brookside and, working class writer? It'd be shame on me for not remembering his name. But, yeah, I kind of, like, watched those things and thought I could recognize some of my story, history, background, what I was growing up around. Um, but and maybe it's just the way that television's kinda changed, but if I think about some things like where people would go, "Oh my god, I saw Shameless," and obviously
Yeah.
it is all amped up to make it more
Yeah.
entertaining, but it's I think it is, yeah, where people go, "Oh my god, I couldn't believe that there would be a family where the mother is absent or, one of the children is raising the rest of them, or there's laundry piled up in the kitchen that's blocked the doorway." And it's like, well, yeah, all of those things are true and real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I do think there is this kind of what we're supposed to aspire to is very sanitized,
Mm.
and not very realistic. But yeah, I can't think about what would I watch that would be equal to one of those things now. Answers
Yeah,
on a
'cause
postcard.
yeah, 'cause that's the thing, it's like, even though you've got the likes of Coronation Street,
Uh,
EastEnders, watching that now compared to probably, say, in the '80s,
yeah,
even though you've got these hard-hitting storylines, it probably doesn't have that same resonance with people
no,
watching it from those backgrounds it's supposed to represent.
yeah,
Because like you said, it has this slightly sanitized,
it does.
sheen across it. Because you do keynote speeches for big
Yeah.
corporations. Do you ever see that there is like a level of like class divide, or is there things that you notice, especially these big corporate companies?
Um, well, there's a few things that have sort of cropped up, um, in that. And I've seen this in a number of places. So when you've got, let's say you've got a law firm, for example,
Yeah.
and you've got these very senior partners, and within the organization, people will look at them, like more junior members of staff, and go, "Oh, like they are gods." Um,
Yeah.
and yet, for a lot of or for, and obviously move in that social mobility space. So I'm probably going
Mm.
to come across more people who have experienced upward social mobility. But there are people in very senior positions in firms who have come from a lower income background or working class background, um, but who will be viewed as probably having come from a professional family or having
Mm.
gone to, a Russell Group university by virtue of the position that they've got.
Yeah.
So what I really like is so many firms that I work with have their senior people come in and say, "I grew up in a single parent household on an estate," for example, and that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Um And I do see, there are organizations where you kind of have almost cut-off point where you have predominantly working class people in certain types of roles and predominantly middle class or people from middle class backgrounds
Mm.
in other roles. So if you've got like fee earners versus business support staff, um, so that I find quite interesting. But the overarching thing that I experience, and from my own experience of working in corporate, is that on a person to person basis, generally, unless you work with some awful people, generally we can work alongside each other. There isn't a, "Oh, you didn't go there. Well, I can't speak to you."
Yeah.
It's process that's the problem a lot of the time. Um, so I know there are a lot of organizations who are examining what is it about our recruitment process that
Yeah.
is stopping people from applying or not bringing in people from a more diverse socioeconomic background. But yeah, it is kind of and some of the people that, helped me throughout my career, one example that I was thinking about the other day, was a manager I had from a very different background to mine, whose children were going to very expensive fee-paying schools, and
Mm.
they looked at my salary and said, "Oh, you're 2 pay grades below where you should be." And that was as a direct result of me being a non-graduate who had come into the company through
Yeah.
acquisition. And they made an exception so they had to take it to, like, HR,
Yeah.
and they had to create an exception because to get a 2-grade bump, it's
Yeah,
unusual.
it's quite a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, so but that actually meant that for every role onwards, I was on a level pegging with people that had a higher, um, level of education or attainment than
Oh,
me.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
So that was interesting for me because I had always thought, well, I didn't go to uni, but I understand this, that, and the other, and I'm really good at my job. But actually, that had penalised me
yeah,
um,
yeah. So,
in terms
yeah,
of my.
because I was gonna say it's quite interesting because people always talk about the gender pay gap, but
Mm,
then there's this thing, it's like, you're just talking about the fact that you haven't got this education, and, that creates this gap, even though you've got
mm,
this wealth of knowledge and experience,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. There's a class pay gap. It is
yeah,
documented. Yeah, so I think it's something like, I don't know, on average, someone from a working class background gets paid about £6,000 less a year
mm,
than their peers who are from uh, better resourced backgrounds.
yeah, yeah,
And that becomes double figures when you factor in being a woman or from different ethnic background or
yeah,
so it's really interesting to me, but there were 2 things in that I thought. One was, for me, it was because I wasn't degree educated, and the other is you've got this problem being grateful, where if you've come from a lower
yeah.
socioeconomic background, you don't
You
think
take
to ask for more money.
Yeah, you just take it. Yeah,
Yeah. You go,
you
"Oh,
take it.
brilliant, I never thought I'd get
Yeah,
paid that much." Yeah.
yeah, you take it and take it as, face value. "Oh, this
Yeah.
must be what I'm worth." Like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
question it. I'm just gonna go with it because, yeah, like you
Exactly.
said, if you're coming from struggle
Yeah.
and then you're in this position where, "Oh, I'm earning quite a bit here," like, I don't wanna rock the boat. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say, "Yeah, I'm happy
Yeah.
with that." Yeah. So, yeah, this kinda comes back to a lot of companies with their DEI, like
Mm.
diversity, equality, inclusion. Do you feel like companies are doing more, or do you feel like it's just a ticking the box exercise?
Um, no, I think it depends. Um 'Cause in some respects, one thing that is true is that it has become much, much harder to, experience upward social mobility, and some of that is related to things like, so if you think about, like, creative careers,
Mm,
um, 30 years ago, maybe, yeah, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you could move to London, move to a major city. Let's not make it all about
yeah,
London. You can move to a major city. You could get a house share, flat share. I mean, the squat share back in the olden
yeah. No,
days.
you'd always hear about that, yeah.
Yeah, but you could move to a major city and give it a go. Or you
Mm,
could have a job like one person that I know that went on to run his own agency. He used to like courier, like a bike courier photographs to, I think, ad agencies.
yeah,
And you could have those kind of jobs, live in major cities, and you didn't have to be earning an enormous amount of money. And that has changed. And so that means that um, there's far less opportunity for people to maybe get in on the ground floor or come in from low socioeconomic backgrounds. So I think there is a need for organisations to look at this kind of thing. And then there is also the issue of where there became such an emphasis on having to get a degree. So where we had was in the 90s with Blair's education, education,
Yeah.
education. So unis started offering loads more degrees in vocational
Mm.
areas.
Yeah.
And then you've
Because
got a problem where,
that would have been polytechnics, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
so you've got that sort of issue of organisations going, "Oh, right, well, we should expect people to
Yeah.
have a degree." And then they change their recruitment practices, which then makes it harder for people to get in who haven't gone through the graduate route. Um, and again, it is like, with the law firms that I speak to, hang on, I have to make sure I get it right. There's Prime Commitment, which are focused on social mobility across major law firms.
Mm.
But if you look at regional law firms, a lot of them bring in apprentices, and there's a thing called, I think it's Silex, where you can get your qualifications without having to via the apprenticeship
Oh,
route.
okay. Yeah.
And so there is now greater emphasis in some of the bigger law firms, professional services firms, on making sure they offer an apprenticeship route so they can bring people in. And the great thing is, in that regard, and what I'm hearing, is they're like, it's great because we get them early. We get to
Mm.
we get to mold them, which maybe sounds
Yeah.
a bit scary. So I do think that there is also evidence that shows that organisations that focus on improving socioeconomic diversity see an uptick in every other protected characteristic. Because
Mm.
if you think about when we had um, when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, and people were like, "Oh my God, look, its cabinet is so diverse, and you've got so many different ethnicities," but people were largely privately
Yeah.
educated.
Yeah. All cut from the
So
same cloth, aren't they?
yeah, so I think it is that thing about, if you bring people in that are from different socioeconomic backgrounds, because you know it is kind of like poverty doesn't care what your other characteristics are. It's
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna get you and
Yeah.
disadvantage you. Um, yeah. Um, so I think it's worth doing. The people I engage with, it seems to me that they're actually doing some meaningful work, and there are some firms doing great work with things like, I could talk about this. Yeah, Travelodge
Mm.
do a thing called Wage Stream, and I know Halfords and some others do it. So this is
Oh, okay.
organisations who are really close to people who are, yeah, like maybe hourly paid or work on
Yeah.
shifts, and it's like
Yeah.
you can see your salary in real time, and if you need to draw down a bit, you can, or you can send some off to a savings pot,
Oh, okay.
and good practical things. Or there are firms that are doing things like, if they run a day for apprentices, they will pay for travel up front because so many
Oh,
people
no, that's
don't have a
good. They're
credit
doing that.
card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
God, I'm
that's good.
rambling here.
I was gonna say, because you're doing a lot of these talks and you are meeting all
Mm,
these different companies, you'll
mm,
probably see firsthand exactly what they're doing and
yeah,
making real change. So yeah, no,
yeah,
it's promising that that
yeah.
sort of thing is happening. Yeah. So coming back onto the location,
Mm,
would you say that's a massive stumbling block for people? Because like you said, initially mentioned London, but major cities. But the fact of it, a lot of the main jobs are always located in big cities like
mm,
London. And I think
yeah,
oftentimes those from working class, low income households, they just can't afford to make that jump and move.
yeah.
So do you go into these events and stuff? Are you noticing that location is still an issue, or are companies kind of tackling that?
Um, I think it is an issue. And even from, so if I think about the work I do today, people are, "Oh, when are you next in town?" Meaning
Mm,
London town. I'm like, "Well, I don't. I'm not, because I
yeah.
live like over 2 hours away." So it definitely is an issue. And actually, if you look at, might be State of the Nation Social Mobility Commission, talks about the problems of regional social
Mm.
mobility. So actually, if you already live in a borough of London, your potential for upward social mobility is higher just by virtue of the fact that
Yeah,
you've got the
that you
tube
live in.
network you
Yeah.
can use. Um, and yeah, I do think it's a problem, because even if you factor for remote working, you've still potentially got to go to places to attend events or to attend
Yeah.
interviews. And if you don't see firms near to you, it just becomes this sort of impossible thing. You go, well,
Yeah.
they're all based in the city. And I do know someone actually who was offered an apprenticeship with a big firm that they had to they delayed it by a year because it would have meant moving from one part of Scotland to the other. So
Mm.
again, it does cause problems. But I know that again, there are firms that are thinking a bit more practically about these things, like
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
we pay for accommodation? I think it might be uh, there's one firm that does it anyway, where if they bring people in to look at the apprenticeship program, they take
Yeah.
them on a night out and they pay for their hotels, but they're like, everything is funded. Nobody has to put their hand in their pocket. So everyone feels like they're
You're a bit
y-
more at ease
the
then.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Bit
yeah,
more at
yeah,
ease. Yeah, it's a bit more
yeah,
comfortable. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, so it does matter. Yes.
Yeah. No, I was going to say actually, because you are doing these talks and stuff, and growing up, you're always from working class,
Mm,
and now that you move through the corporate world
mm,
and you're doing these keynote speaking,
mm,
that would probably be classed as more of like a middle class role. Do you
mm.
feel like you've moved on from like your social class?
Um, y yeah, it's sort of, and this became, I suppose, the basis of what I do, and, my point of difference is that I bring in things that I learned doing stand-up to my
Mm.
talk. So someone called it the other day, like, a one-woman show. I thought, "I'm having that," um, because some of the challenges that I experienced just, like, exploring comedy, and people don't think about this, but if you were gonna go and do the Edinburgh Fringe, because when I first did stand-up, people were like, "Oh, you can do the Edinburgh Fringe. You need thousands of pounds to do that."
Mm.
Um, and people don't realise, they're like, "Oh my god," it's positioned as this, well, it's a festival for everybody, everybody's welcome, you've got comedy from all over the country. It's like, yeah, and at the same time, people still need to be able to afford to live in Edinburgh at a point when
Yeah.
accommodation is really expensive, and hire out spaces. So, there's definitely parts of me, so geographically, I think, I have moved,
Yeah.
we bought a house, which is uncommon, um, but there's still things that for me are very much about my background, my cultural reference points, because I thought, and this is something that I think a lot of people feel who've been through that corporate experience, is it's very seductive. And you can
Mm.
feel like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do these kind of holidays, or I need to wear these
Yeah.
kind of clothes, or have this kind of car. But you sort of feel a bit ill at ease with yourself because you're like, it's not
Yeah.
really who I am.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of against your core
and
values a bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So it is thing I do feel, yeah, I'd felt you could feel like you have no culture and that you're not
Mm.
cultured.
Yeah.
And I realize that's an absolute lie, because I am rich with my, guess, working class culture of that, growing up surrounded by family,
Yeah.
people helping one another, like the football reference, the chants that we used to sing in school, um, the fashion, the music. I used to go to the Caribbean Club in Basingstoke with, friends of mine. We saw David Rodigan DJ,
Mm.
and there's so many things for me where I'm like, oh my God, I had so many brilliant cultural experiences that other people were like, oh wow, that's really cool. I didn't get to do that, because
Yeah.
because they had a very different upbringing to me. So, but but I know I speak differently. I know I use different language. I know I went through a phase when my children were born. Like, I didn't feel awful. I was like, I only want them to have wooden toys. Um, bought clothes from Boden, and uh, there were times when I know probably my family were like, "Oh, for God's sake, get over yourself." I
Yeah.
became pretty uptight about quite a few things. But I feel like I've sort of found my way back in some ways, but it's hard. It's really hard
Mm.
to, I've spoken to people about my background, and they've gone, "Oh my God, oh, ooh, ooh, oh, sounds horrible." And you're like, "Wait, that's my life. What are you on about?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it is that you can try and hide it, and some people do try and hide it, but it will find its way out in the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, 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 yeah. But I suppose,
Um,
it's younger people getting into the industry or whatever respective field that
mm,
they're going into, and they're coming from lower class or working class.
yeah,
And for them, I suppose when you're young, you're not really comfortable within your skin. It's not until as you get
yeah,
older, you're like, actually,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's like, this is who I am. This is who I was. Like, I find it with myself, actually, doing these interviews.
yeah,
I've actually become more comfortable about talking about my working class roots and
yeah,
where I've come from. But prior to
yeah,
this, it was like I'd mention it, but only if I knew that person was from those roots as well.
yeah.
So would you have any kind of key advice or tips that you would tell any younger people these days?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think you're so right. You've got things to learn when you're
Mm,
younger. And the things that really helped me is, it's like, don't lose that optimism. Like, oh my God, I've
mm,
always been so optimistic, and being able to find a way. And I think there's something to be said about reframing, because I was sort of told growing up, people would say, "Oh, you've got the gift of the gab," or "You talk too much."
mm,
Um, and they were there. But when I sort of think about some of the qualities that I had, it's sort of about understanding, like when they talk about transferable skills in the
yeah,
workplace.
yeah.
I came to learn later on, I'm very tenacious, very loyal, very resourceful, very creative, and all of those skills were kind of baked in due
Um,
to my background. And it was that sort of place where if there was a problem, it's like Avengers Assemble. You just have all these people, you go, right, how do we fix this issue?
yeah.
Um, and that is a skill. And I did a talk at a school actually, and if I think about, what was going on when I was a teenager, I would have been classified as a young carer in today's language.
Oh,
And I was speaking about my experiences, and I was saying there are resources available if you're a young carer. And a pupil came up to me afterwards, and he said, I've just realized that that's what I am. I have to look
yeah,
after my
yeah.
mum, and I have to take my sister to school. And I'm like, right, there is support available. So I think there's a couple of things of kind of feeling comfortable or figuring out the skills that you bring is one thing, because beyond your academic
Yeah,
qualifications,
yeah, yeah.
so much of what is going to help you get on in life is not about that. It's about what sort of emotional or soft skills you've gained.
Mm,
Um, and I think the other thing is about seeking resources that will help you, because there is a lot out there,
yeah.
um, but we don't like to talk about it. Or you don't want to be the one that says, "I need," you know what I mean? I feel like I need help. And I would say finally, oh my God, ask questions. Like, because I'm very curious by nature, I was always like,
Mm,
"How did you do this? How did you get here? What would I need to do to get
yeah,
that?"
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And it's rare that someone will say, I'm not going to help you. And if you ask someone who is senior to you in role, what was fascinating to me is that so often people might be afraid to approach senior individual or might
Mm.
think, oh, they won't give me time. But for those people, they'd be like, oh, I'd love to help a younger
Yeah,
member of
yeah.
staff. I'd love to have somebody who shows a bit of initiative and get up and go, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would ask questions.
Yeah, if you don't ask, you
Yeah.
don't get.
Don't ask, you don't get. Yes.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about the Common Good Network and what it is that you do? What is that?
Yes. So, one thing I've observed, so I've experienced upward social mobility and my family, many of my peers did not. And that breaks my heart. It sort of, you know, when you get to that point where you go,
Mm.
oh, wow, there are lots of things that I've done that I mean, I've, worked really hard. Um, at the same time, there are people who don't have access to opportunities based on where they were born or the family they were born into. So
Mm.
I started mapping out these great organizations that I was coming across who were doing grassroots work and offering practical support. Things like SmartWorks, who give free interview coaching and clothing
Yeah.
to women who are looking for jobs, or like Trash Gang in Croydon, who help people get into the creative arts, or help people to create their own art and print that onto T-shirts and sell their work. And
Okay. Yeah.
anyway, I was like, how do I surface this? So the Common Good Network is an interactive map and directory of organisations across the UK and Ireland that help people overcome socioeconomic barriers to opportunity. So it's
Okay.
designed to be really easy to use. Um, it is kind of free of any commercial or political sort of oversight. It's funded at the
Yeah.
moment by my speaking work, and my ambition is to turn it into an app one day. I was applying for funding
Yeah.
last night, so I'm a bit like, "Oh."
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, so it is for me, I know that I've, you know, got a life that I feel so happy with and beyond my wildest dreams, but for me, it's like, well, how do we make sure that anyone who just could do with some support in getting
Yeah.
access to employment, education opportunities can find that quickly and easily? It's at the
Okay.
commongood.network.
Cool. Yeah, I can put the links in the description and stuff like that. Before we go, was there any like last words of wisdom or advice you would give?
Oh, hmm. Um, I,
Or is there
I don't
anything that
know.
you wish someone had told you much earlier on?
Um, I think I wish somebody would have told me, like, it's gonna be alright and you're alright just as you are. I think you don't have to be
Mm.
something that you're not. I think that would have
Yeah.
helped me out because the more that when I finally got to the point where I realized that I could be myself, all the things that I was kind of hopeful of started to come my way. I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
I was trying to be this image of something that I thought you had to be
Mm.
successful." So, um, yeah, yeah, and like you say, some of it comes from experience, learning about yourself, feeling
Yeah.
comfortable with yourself. There's a lot in that, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I
It's
think
all
that's
part
what
of
I wish
life.
someone would have told me. It is all part. It
Yeah.
is all part of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so is there any way people could reach out to you or connect? And
Yeah, I'm on
yeah.
LinkedIn. If you just search for Toni Kent, you'll find me. I'm on LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, you find my website's tonikent.co.uk. But
Cool.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure I'm
Right,
in the
yeah.
show notes. You can put my links
Yeah.
in the show
Yeah, I'll
notes.
put all the descriptions, links and stuff in the description below.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, thanks for doing this interview. It was great and offered some real insight there. It was really handy.
thanks.
Thank you.
Good to spend time with you, James. Love the
Yeah.
podcast.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Initial Step. If you resonate with the stories we share and have a similar background you'd like to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch and maybe you'll be featured in an upcoming episode. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Be sure to check out our previous episodes for more inspiring stories. Until next time, we'll see you in the next one.